Just after 3 o'clock, Jason Greger. Connor Haller with you. You can always get involved in the show. You can text us at 10-1260 or email us in our Jiffy Lube inbox, Jay Greger, at tsn1260.ca. Visit jiffylubeservice.ca to find the location near you, and you'll find a $10 off coupon for your next full synthetic oil change. That's jiffylubeservice.ca. We welcome to the program, Jason Strutt. Okay, Strutty, when was the last time you changed the oil in your vehicle? Do you remember? Have you ever changed your own oil?
No, just the one time I went to your place there, and I did. I got underneath the hood, and put some overalls on and got it done. But no, I go get it done. I'm pretty diligent on that. Like, as soon as it says to do it, I get it done.
But when you were young at 16, did you ever actually change your oil yourself, or were you always a guy who went to a place?
No, I never did. No.
Really?
Never.
Jeez.
No, I'm not. It's not my thing. It's just.
You're gonna have to talk to Wayner about that. That's kind of a fail as a father. You should, it's kind of one thing is teach your kids how to change your oil. Like, I know nowadays it's a little bit different, but man, back then it was like I kind of liked it. It was actually very simple. Like, changing the oil was very simple. You think just unscrew it, right? The oil pan drips out, boom, close it back up. We'll take off the oil filter, change it. Boom, the only challenging part at times was wherever the filter was located, if you could get the wrench around it properly to get it off. So it's always fun. I had a old Ford EXP, and it sucked. And back then I didn't have any money to get it done, so I had to do it myself. And it was always a challenge. So I might have driven a little bit longer than I should have every time, just to wait till the oil was really black before I changed it. But it's good. It's like changing a tire. Please tell me you know how to change a tire.
Oh, yeah, I've done that. No, it's for sure. No problem. Yeah. Competing some events, how fast I can get it off, right?
Okay. Connor, do you know how to change a tire?
Change a tire? Yes.
Okay.
Oil change, I've gone through it with my dad a few times, and he's a big fan. I feel like in another life he would have been a mechanic. He likes to do it, I think. I just watch and, bring him a bottle of rum or something after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Strutty, lots happening. We had Cody Ceci on the show earlier, and I was looking at Ceci's because I think, when we talk about the defense, I was, thinking about, okay, so have the Oilers really improved? And their forwards, to me, it's not even a debate. I think their forwards have improved. Defense, I think Keith is better than the Jones, Cuckoo, Kulikov trio because they basically played one spot. Ceci, I don't believe is as good as Larson overall. I think he'd be okay. I think there's going to be a downgrade there in some areas. He's not as physical. He's not as mean for sure. Then Bouchard and Bear, to be as good as Bear last year is obviously easier than to be as good as Bear in 2020, right? And Bouchard's, he's 6'3", so he's got a pretty big, more wingspan and space to his game. He's not necessarily a big defensive guy, but I'm really intrigued, Strutty, about the penalty kill because the Oilers' penalty kill has been a massive part of their success for the last 2 seasons, massive. And I just wonder now if you take out Larson and Bear and potentially Cuckoo. Now, granted, he was only on there a little bit, but when he was pretty instrumental in shot blocking and such. I just wonder about the continuity of a penalty kill, Struds. How is it that simple to just say, okay, here's your lane, Duncan Keith, CC, your veterans, you figured out? Because Mike Smith talked about the reason he feels they've had success and the Oilers have had the best save percentage of 5-on-4 or 4-on-5 the last 2 years is because he always knew exactly where the shot was coming from. So is it that easy for those guys to just assimilate into the penalty kill in Edmonton?
Yeah, and he just nailed it. I've talked about that before, is that, that's what goalies want. They want some predictability. There's one extra player on the ice for the other team, so they're going to get chances, right? But as long as it's somewhat predictable and the goalie knows where it's coming, he can kind of cheat to that side and get into position to make that play. It's when it's complete chaos and no one knows what's going on. So that's why you have your structure. So that when you're killing a penalty, D-men are here, forward are here. If this happens, you react here, and everyone moves in unison. And it's everyone's got to go. All 4 players have to be working in unison. If one person is aggressive, everyone's aggressive. If the first guy isn't, I can't be aggressive following them up. It's all works together. So I think when you look up front, you're not just talking about the back end. The front, some of those guys have changed out, right? Like Jujar is no longer there to kill penalties. So I'm guessing be guys like Hyman, Derek Ryan. Obviously, Nuge will be a part of it. McLeod probably gets a shot at it. Archibald's a guy. So I don't know who you roll out first. You roll out Nuge and Archie, and then or maybe Ryan and Archie first, and then you roll out Nuge and Hyman, or how much time does McLeod get? Because you got to start getting him some PK time. So everyone's going to have to get used to everyone quite quickly because there's a lot of new people. But for the D-men, the biggest thing I always thought when I was killing penalty is to be in the right shooting lane, and it doesn't mean you have to block the shot. Sometimes you can just deny the shot, so the guy either has to. He misses the shot and or he chooses not to shoot that puck. And that's just as good as a block shot in my opinion because you're making him change his plan or of what they want to do. So for CC, he's going to have to, he's not replacing Larson and he's not being paid like he's as good as Larson. But he's got to be like a 2.0 version, or I guess not quite, whatever, a 1B version of him. Be solid, defend hard, make sure keeping the guys to the outside, keep their shots to the outside in the PK. Sticks and lanes, and sticks are a huge part. Have an active stick, move it around. So, I think that the preseason will be key. You talked yesterday how you'd have Keith and CC all the time together to make sure they can get themselves organized. And I think for the PK, you want your groups right away. I know they make 2 teams and stuff, but whatever it is, if it's going to be Ryan and Archie, have them kill penalties together so they can get on the same page. Same things with the D, so everyone gets it going. Then as far as penalty killers, on the back end, Keith, CC for sure, Nurse. And I think, Bouchard, I'd probably put him out there before Barry. Depends who that other third left D-man is. Is it Russell? Maybe Rusty gets in there. But I'd like to try to get Bouchard some touches in there. I think he's number 5. I agree with you. I think he's the 5th defenseman. And on those times where, one of your top 4 defensemen's in the penalty box, that's where you're going to see him. And maybe, depending on the flow of the game and stuff, if Nurse has just come off a real long shift or something, you might see it. But I think, though, like they did last year, they kind of stuck to 4 for the most part. Yeah. They'd switch guys in, and I get it. But I think Bouchard will be your 5th guy because Barry's going to be your main guy in the power play. And then I'm curious if Bouchard and Nurse, how they split up the second half of the first unit, I guess is how we call it. So you want to find a way to get Bouchard some minutes because if he's only playing 5-on-5, it's going to be hard for him to stay in the game. It is for sure. D-men a little bit different because you don't get lost quite as much as a 4th liner. Like you're a 4th liner, you can get, like, trust me, I've sat in the 4th line spot. You don't just get lost. Like, I think the coach pushes you off the bench. Like, hey, I'm actually in the lineup if you want to use me. But as a D-man, there's only 6 of you, right? So if someone takes a penalty, now there's all of a sudden just 5. So you have to get into that rotation. But yeah, I think Bouchard's minutes have got to be north of 15. Most nights. So to do that, he's got to get, some kind of special team minutes. But I really think on that power play, they'll get Barry in there, but I think you'll see Nurse sometimes, and we saw him change through last year. I think even Bouchard, you got to get his beak wet. Like you've got to give him a chance to get going, to feel good about himself, and he brings a different element to that group. He is a better passer than Tyson Barrie. I firmly believe that he is a better passer, and quite frankly, his shot is probably, if not as good, almost as good as Tyson Barrie. Now, he maybe doesn't have the experience, or not maybe, he doesn't have the experience of Barrie, so that makes it a little bit different. That's an equalizer. But you got to get Bouchard going because these 3 years with Barrie are going to tick by quickly. And by the time that comes out, you want to make sure Bouchard is clearly the guy running the power play and playing significant minutes for this team. So, 3 years sounds like a long time, but it goes by pretty quick in hockey world.
Yeah, I had a few outside scouts tell me today they believe that right now today Bouchard's not as good in the power play as Barrie. Barrie does a lot of little things in the power play that people maybe don't recognize, but that doesn't mean that Bouchard can't get there, and they feel that it's going to help him. Like, we heard last year from Jones and Bear, just like the thing that Barrie's really good at, even 5-on-5, is just when he jumps up in the play and when to do it. Right. And that just gives the other team, now we got to watch out for that guy. And so I think this is a great situation. I could easily see during this tenure of Bouchard and Barrie that you see Bouchard eventually I think Bouchard ultimately, Struds, is the guy who's going to take more 5-on-5 minutes from Barrie down the road because he's 6'3". And I'm a firm believer when you have skill and you've got 4 extra inches in reach, that's just a big difference, Struddy. Well, you defended. Like, I'm sure you defended with guys who were teammates at 5'10", and you're like, geez, like that guy, he just doesn't cover as much ground, even when he's reaching for pucks, right? He's just not the same. Like, I've always argued, Colorado, You watch. Sammy Girard's going to get moved out of Colorado when they want to make a deep run in the playoffs because he's 5'10" and he plays with a mini stick. He literally plays with a souvenir stick. He's not taking up any space.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. But when I look at Bouchard and Barrie, there's a difference because you're right. Barrie is excellent following the play up. I don't really know that Bouchard has that just yet, and that was something that I talked a lot about. Bear's got to be able to jump in the play and follow that rush up. And that it makes it's so hard as a defender when I'm looking up and I see a 2-on-2, and all of a sudden there's a D-man come out of nowhere. Like, where is this guy coming from, and where is my forward? And now it's a 3-on-2, right? And it changes it up so much, and it really makes it hard on you. So that's what Barry's really good at. That scout was 100% right. I didn't see that from Bouchard last year. To be fair, he didn't play that many games to really get comfortable, but it takes a lot of energy. So if you think of a guy, Barrie or Victor Hedman in Tampa, how hard they grind in their own zone, then Hedman especially, chips up the wall or makes a play, then he gets on his horse and flies up the ice to support that rush. Like, that takes a tremendous amount of effort. Darnell Nurse can do it because he's in great shape. Barry's got the skating ability to do that as well. For Barrie, it wasn't quite there yet. And it takes time. Like, it's very taxing, and you have to be in great shape to do that. And I'm not suggesting other guys aren't in good shape, but it's a whole other level of conditioning to get up there. So, I think Bouchard, there's no doubt Barrie right now in the power play is better, but Bouchard, I think, has some natural skills that are really good. Hopefully, I believe they will transfer into that, but he's got to work on all of his game because you don't want him to become just a one-dimensional player. You want him to evolve into a guy that can play in all situations, beside a Darnell Nurse, beside hopefully a Samorkov, beside a Broberg. All these guys are coming up, and you've got to evolve them so they're more complete than maybe what they came into the league as.
Yeah. It's interesting to me just to see, like, the penalty kill is going to have a lot of new faces. Fogel's going to be on there. Ryan's going to be on there. Hyman's probably going to be on there. Cece and Keith for sure are going to be on there. Like, that's significant changes on your penalty kill. Doesn't mean it's automatic because it's going to be hard to maintain it anyway at that level. But that's something to watch for sure. And so we'll get into it more. And probably when the season begins and in training camp, that's going to be something that I watch for because the lines are really the only I think Hyman's starting with McDavid. It's a no-brainer. Nugent Hopkins will start with Draisaitl. Yamamoto will start there. I think he's going to have to play well to maintain the spot there, and then we'll kind of go from there. Because keep in mind, Zach Hyman is a right shot, and if Fogel's playing well, maybe Hyman plays the right side. You never know. So there's finally going to be some competition. Like the top six wingers last year, they were never pushed. Most of them outside of Puljujarvi produced nothing with the top two elite scorers in the league, and they just kept getting rolled out there. At least now with Foegele, there's a guy who can push you for that spot. And maybe, massive maybe, to start the season, maybe during halfway through the year, all of a sudden Dylan Holloway becomes another option too. So that to me is going to be good because I thought there were some top six wingers who were just like, whatever happens here, I'm not moving down because we got no one who's moving up. And I think competition usually breeds a little bit more success for everybody involved. Quick break. We'll return. Gregor Struds on Edmonton Sports Leader TSN 1260. Struds on next. NBA draft tonight. We're going to talk about that coming up in the next hour. Like, are the Philadelphia 76ers living in a dream world? Like, oh, man. Keith Pompey had so the 76ers said that they wanted Andrew Wiggins, James Wiseman, and 4 first-rounders for Ben Simmons. Like, am I missing something? Like, is Ben Simmons a different Ben Simmons that I watch who can't make a jump shot? Now, he can work on it all he wants, but until he shows he can make a jump shot, why are you giving up that much? Like, it's unbelievable. The other one was OG Anunoby and Fred VanVleet. I'm like, clearly they don't want to trade him. So they're going to make it look like they're trying to trade him, but they don't want to. But, oh, my goodness, like maybe they're just trying to pump up Ben Simmons' confidence. He's sitting at home. He's like, geez, look what they're asking for, man. Like, I'm really good. This is what they got to be doing.
No, that's crazy. They should say that the other team should say, okay, well, we'll take that deal, but Ben Simmons has to hit the shot for us to make the deal, or we get him for, like, future considerations. Put him in three-point. He has to shoot a three and make it under pressure. because that's or a free throw. Like he's not a great shooter, and it's to me that's a big piece of the puzzle missing for him.
Yeah, like I remember I criticized the Clippers for how much they gave up for Paul George. But Paul George was a more proven player than Ben Simmons, and this is basically the same offer almost. So no chance for me. Let's get to Struds On, brought to you by the Nation Network Golf Tournament. Coming up in basically a month from today, 4 weeks, as it goes Thursday, August 26th. And you can tee it up. You can go to nationgear.ca where you can get your tickets, or text me and I'll send you the link. It's easy. You can get in. You have a lot of fun. But if you're a fun sponge, don't sign up, because this is a lot of diehard Oilers fans who love Oilers Nation and like supporting charities. They even have a bus that takes you out to the course. So if you want to have a few beverages, everybody gets home safe. So there you go. It's the Nation third annual golf tournament.
The Jason Gregor Show presents Struds On March Madness.
Had North Mexico State.
You mean New Mexico?
Is it North? What is it? I can't even write it down.
New Mexico.
Well, there just says N on my bracket.
Himself.
I'm an open book, Griggs. I'm a flower that's blooming in front of the whole world, and I have no problem.
Facebook.
I was poking everything that moved. I just thought it was cool.
The Jason Gregor Show presents Struds On.
You're kidding yourself, Sabres. So, Kevin Adams had a press conference today, and he's impressed me. Like, honestly, he's done some good things. The way he's handling this whole Jack Eichel thing, it seems like he's got some kind of a plan, and he's holding his line for the return that he wants. And you look at some of the trades he's made, and, he's made a decision with the coach. And everything was going well until I saw today he was asked about his goaltenders. And he said, we're very comfortable with where we're at. And I almost spit out my chai coffee latte. I couldn't believe it. So I'm going to name the 4 goaltenders that they have in their lineup, and I'm going to ask you guys to tell me if anyone on the team should feel comfortable with this. So the first one, Dustin Koharski. He's 31 years old. Hasn't played a lot of NHL games, about 47. Next, Aaron Dell. You may remember him from the hits of the Sharks and last year with the Devils. 114 NHL games. He's 32 from AirG, mind you. Craig Anderson. A lot of games, but he's 40 years old, signed to a $750 deal. And then Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. He has 4 NHL games and has been in North America for about 3-4 seasons. Obviously COVID's had something to do with that. So if you're on this team and you're trying to, coax yourself or convince yourself that you're not just playing for a tank situation this season, how can a guy like Tage Thompson or Drake Caggiula or Casey Middlestat or Victor Olofsson, Jeff Skinner, who is probably just happy with what he's got, Dylan Cousins, who else? Rasmus Dahlin, or any of these guys. How can you seriously think the team is really trying to win when your 2 goalies or whoever they're going to be are all at best backups or past their best time of their career? So listen, Kevin Adams, I get it. Like I get you're trying to spin things positively, but don't try to sell me something that's a muffin, that when I actually know it isn't. It's so bad. It is such a bad. The truth is in there, and they're trying to tank. And the scary thing is, I think Phoenix is almost doing a better job than them at tanking. But this goalie situation, guys, it is unbelievable how bad their team isn't going to be strong. Then you add the goaltenders on top, like it's an arms race to the bottom between the Coyotes and Sabres, and I don't even know what to think of that, because you're not even trying, guys. You're not even trying.
Yeah, like they're gonna here, young goalies. Let's see if you can save us, because man, like I look at Buffalo and I look at Arizona and. Yeesh. It's going to be, even the Anaheim Ducks. I'm kind of, I've been hearing rumblings about the Ducks that they don't want to give up a first rounder of this year for Jack Eichel, and I'm like, what? Now you might have a top pick, but and who knows how good that pick will be? Right? Jack Eichel's a pretty good player. Now he's expensive, but Arizona and Buffalo, yeah, it would be with Darcy. Like who's Arizona's goalies? Like they don't even have a goalie right now, Struds. Like they're literally not.
At least Arizona. Arizona has a goalie, right? Like they have John Gibson, so that gives them a chance, right? And
Anaheim has John Gibson.
Sorry,
Arizona has no goalie.
Anaheim. Yeah, Anaheim's got Fowler, Lindholm, Manson, Shattenkirk, and Jacob
Yeah, they
Russell.
got some players, sure.
They've got some decent, that should be able to, try to keep the puck out of their net. But they've got that. Gibson's a good goalie, but the other two, I'm sorry, man, they're not even pretending. Like the next thing we're gonna have a guy pulled out of the old River Cree Division 6 men's league who's gonna go in there and try to play between the pipes because, Carter Hutton and there's just nothing. They're not even trying. So how do you feel if you're Jacob Chikrin in Phoenix? You sign there with the intention you're 23, you're gonna start hitting your prime here in the next 1, 2, 3 seasons. But honestly, when can you see Arizona pulling out of this? Is that 3 years, 3 Septembers from now? Would that be fair? Because this time, Kessel, Eriksson, even Yaskin, Roussel, Beagle, all these guys are getting traded at the trade deadline. Dzingel, they're going to trade him for anything they can get. I'm telling you, man, it's at least, I played on a bad team in Edmonton, but at least I felt like we were trying to win, but this is so obvious that they're not even trying. And to me, it starts in that. If you don't even give yourself a chance in that, Griggs, you're not going to have a chance.
No, it's we'll see where it goes. Hey guys, what do you think about Ryan Murray? Well, I can tell you right now, hey, Ryan Murray's he's a good defenseman. He'd be ideal. The Oilers have reached out to him, and they have interest in him. I think right now, today, he's expecting probably more than what Edmonton can afford. I think that's fair. But, as I've said, that might change. Now, the other teams, because there'll be other teams, look around the league, there's lots of teams who still need defensemen. Right? So he could probably get more money, Struds, and maybe even more term, but on a team that, you could sign in Arizona, you could sign in Buffalo, and you could get more money, but you got no chance to win. Right?
And
so I wonder if you're Ryan Murray and you say, for 1 year? Yeah, I'll do it for a year. I'd rather be on a competitive team for a year and have fun than be on an awful team just so I can make, an extra $750 or whatever. It depends. Now, I don't know what his financial situation is, so we'll see where it goes. But I don't think ultimately, he's yet to sign. There'll be teams offering him deals, and we'll see. Edmonton would love to get him. I'm just not sure they're going to be able to afford him. Jake Bean just signed a 3-year contract. He was acquired from Carolina by Columbus. So there's another NHL deal today that's gone down. So
can I just make a quick comment on Murray?
Yeah.
Griggs? So Ryan Murray, if I'm him, I'm trying to position myself to put myself in a really good position where I kind of get back in the good books, right? You look where he's been. It hasn't always been ideal. Some teams there in Columbus and going to New Jersey. Put yourself in a position where you can shine, and then you can get that if he does want term, and every player wants term. He's not the only guy. No, you know what? Do you think I took all those 1-year contracts because I was just, I'm going to do the NHL a favor, just take a 1-year contract? Of course not. I would have taken a 10-year contract for league minimum. I did. I was just, so he wants a term, but you've got to put yourself somewhere you can shine. Because if he goes to an Arizona or Buffalo, yeah, he might get an extra, 10%, 20%. You're going to be there only to the trade deadline. Because those teams they're looking to get any assets they can. They're going to trade you away, and then you become, maybe go to a good situation in the playoffs, but there's no guarantees. You might be the extra player. You might be the Luke Shen in Tampa Bay, that he played in the past. So I'd really be looking at the best fit I can so I can go and shine and then do well, and then I could parlay that into to better money. Because what is he, Grace? He's is he 26, 27? Is he older than Nurse? Is he...
Yeah, he's older than Nurse because he was drafted same year as Yakupov. He's a year older.
Yeah. So I don't know. You got to put yourself in a spot where you can really do well. That would be my advice to him if I was his agent. Go somewhere you can shine. And the Oilers are looking for someone like him. And he come in, he could do a hell of a job. And then next year he looks at a 3 or 4 year contract, right? And that's how you leverage it. You leverage you're getting a good spot, playing well, where you know the team's going to, this is a playoff team. How far can it go? Does it go a round or two? You look better and better. Now you're a free agent. Oh boy, you're looking pretty good this time next year.
Yeah. I think he's 2 years older than Nurse because I think he's a late birthday. right? And then was drafted in 2012. Let me check. Because Nurse was born in 95, and I think Murray's in 93. I'll double check that. So I think they're technically birth years, 2 years apart. Nurse obviously is a February birthday, and then he'd be later, so a year and a half. But technically, as far as age goes, then he'd be 2 calendar years older. But you're right. I think it's definitely something that you would consider if you're Ryan Murray. Now, it depends who the other teams are, because I've looked. There's some other teams who need defensemen. So, like outside of those two bottom ones, I got to look at. And like Ryan Murray's a pretty good defenseman. I think he's going to take a little bit of a pay cut, but I don't know if he wants to take like that much. Like even like Kulikov, what he got today from Dallas, it was 2 years, but even at 2.5, I don't think Edmonton wants to go that high right now for a third pairing left defenseman. Right? They just don't want to go that high. So we'll see where they go. We'll come back. We'll speed things up on Edmonton Sports Leader TSN 1260. You're listening to the Jason Gregor Show. 3:45 Edmonton Sports Leader TSN 1260 as we get to the racing report brought to you by Cantork. In the last few years, pretty tough on many of us. Some put on a bit of weight, but at Cantork, it's all muscle. Next generation RT Series low-profile hydraulic actuators are now available. Stronger and more durable than ever. You can get a demonstration at cantork.com. Colin Livingston joins us once again. F1 gets back on track this coming weekend. Colin, are you expecting any it was kind of crazy because of what happened with Lewis Hamilton and Max in the last race. Do you think there'll be any carryover other than hype, but once they're on the track, it's going to be a non-issue?
100%. I mean, there's definitely going to be a lot more posturing, a lot more grandstanding, a lot more of this, rhetoric, between, Christian Horner, the Red Bull camp, and the Mercedes camp. But even in the last hour or two, the result finally came down of Red Bull's challenge, and they were pretty stoutly defeated. So there won't be the stewards' requirement was, and Red Bull's protest, had to be based on new, credible, or previously unavailable evidence. And, the short version, the stewards are always fairly impartial, as is Mercedes, generally in their public commenting. And, the final line in the stewards' review says that the stewards note with some concern certain allegations made in the competitors above letter, they have concern with some of the allegations made. Such allegations may not have been relevant to the stewards if the petition for review had been granted. So, to take a position that's that aggressive, where they basically need to say, no, we don't find grounds. The fact that they go to the point of saying that there's concern is very telling. Mercedes also came out with a counter statement. Once the appeal was declined, and this is the strong. I mean, these are all fairly innocuous if they're taken individually. The Mercedes again is fairly passive, but they used a really interesting expression, really interesting language. Saying that this was a concerted attempt by senior management of Red Bull to tarnish the good name and sporting integrity of Lewis Hamilton, including the documents submitted for their unsuccessful writer review. For Mercedes, that's way over the top. And now this is kind of the flip side of what we talked about last week, is that if they proceeded with this challenge and it fails, Red Bull's petition failed, they're really going to look bad. And now there's no way for them to come back from this other than to put a good product on track and go race.
Colin, you talk about this as also called more, in your words, more posturing on the track and between the teams. What does that look like? How does that manifest itself?
These guys do this every week. Every race weekend, every race, they're saying something, they're doing something to create doubt in their competitors, or to hype up their own team to make it look, to get people to side with them, or to kind of see their point of view. Christian Horner, the team principal at Red Bull, has been fairly steadfast in his comments that they took exception to the fact that based on the outcome of the crash and that Hamilton was still able to go on to win the race, that the penalty wasn't harsh enough. And the fact that they celebrated the win while Max was in the hospital, they took a lot of they took objection to that. That I don't know what the alternative would have been, but that's an example of the posturing. Every team does it to a certain extent, and every team is going to be, positioning and posturing publicly as well as privately with the stewards and with everyone at the FIA. I think this particular situation got a little bit out of control.
Colin Livingston, yeah, definitely. I think I went a little bit overboard for sure. Now, the NASCAR Pinty Series is finally kicking off their season. There's a doubleheader coming up this weekend. There's some driver changes, but what are you expecting after such a long time off for Pinty Series?
First of all, just super excited to be able to get back to the track, and this year, we're going to have fans in the stands, so that's going to be, it's going to be a lot different than what we had last year. I get to my first plane ride in, I think 9 months. So for me, I generally fly about 120,000 miles a year. And to not be in an airport or on an airplane for that long is kind of crazy. To get back to the track this weekend, to work with Tag, to get back to our Pinty's family, it's going to be awesome. Lots of changes. I mean, a few drivers bouncing around. It looked like Andrew Ranger might miss the season, but he's going to be joining Rick Ware Racing. Rick Ware, they already field teams in IndyCar as well as the top levels of NASCAR. So, Ranger should be in good hands, and that's a relief for me because our Pinty Series has a bit of a history of a guy winning the championship and then not being in the series or not being not racing the next year. I mean, the last time was Caden Lapsevich. He won the title a couple of years ago and then wasn't able to put a deal together to keep running. Rangers are last full season champion. Jason Hathaway won the abridged season last year, so it's just great that he's going to be out there. Alex Gannett's going to be joining the series this year. Alex was one of our replacement drivers when Tag had a medical situation, in 2019. He's a great kid. He's going to, add a lot to the series. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we've added a whole lot of Western content, so it's going to be pretty predominantly Quebec and a little bit of Ontario drivers. But, we get a doubleheader at sunset on Sunday, and I think the first broadcast will be, I think I read August 8th, whatever the following weekend is. So we'll be able to start, broadcasting our races again.
Colin, with that shorter season last year, should we expect more rust or some rusty races as people kind of get the feeling of the karts underneath them again as they hit the road?
Yeah, not at all. I mean, these guys are professionals. We've had there have been a handful of tests that most of the teams have completed. We've done a couple oval tests, and Alex and a handful of other drivers were at ICAR for a road car test earlier this week. So no, I mean, they're going to be fine. What'll happen though is the teams that have managed to develop their program, are going to hit the track a whole lot more better prepared than some of the teams that have shorter budgets or just weren't able to get out to test, or they weren't able to get out to develop, and they might find themselves a little bit behind. But no, I mean, drivers are drivers. Once the helmet goes on, you know what to do.
Colin Livingston joins us in the Cantork Racing Report. And before we let you go, karting, of course, locally, you guys have had, it's been pretty big. You had it out at the Strathmore Motor Sports Park. And now, were you like Max? Yeah, I heard you got ran off the track. What happened?
I wish I knew. Just unfortunate that again, when we put our helmets on, one thing happens that we always know what to do. But at the same time, some people put their helmets on and the brain gets switched off. For the first time in my karting career and my racing career, I was involved in a pretty hard hit. Without mentioning the other driver, just flat didn't stop in enough time as we came to a fairly hard corner and just drove over top of me. Launched off my back bumper, drove up into my shoulder, and then ended up kind of pinching my hand between their front bumper and my steering wheel, which led to a fair bit of damage. Hurt like hell. My hand is still not even close to right. And what makes it, what bothers me the most about stuff like that is, when I came back to the pit, to the guy's credit, he kind of wanted to talk about it, and talk was the last thing that I wanted to do. And, I won't repeat the exact verbiage that I used, but basically said that, right now is not a good time to talk. And, if I actually had to repeat what I actually said, I would be, promptly escorted off the radio in perpetuity. But, he wanted to keep talking and just kind of escalated the situation by saying like, well, our tires touched. And in go-karts or any kind of open wheels, if tires touch, bad things happen. Like, both carts go in the air, and, kind of pointed out like, no, you hit me in the back bumper, like dead center in my bumper, climbed over top of me. And like, it wasn't even close to, it wasn't close to like incidental contact. It was, it was just really, really bad. And,
so did you file an appeal like Red Bull, or what happens here? What happened to karting?
I've got 14 days to go before the stewards, so we're going to amass our information, and we're going to try and present. Well, if you want to compare the situations, the offending driver didn't receive any penalty at all. So, at the very least, he should have got a 20-second penalty for deploying his pushback bumper. But no, he was able to continue on, went back into the final, and I was left to lick my wounds and, question some of my life's decisions as to whether or not I want to keep doing this. But,
do you guys have penalties in karting?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean,
okay.
if you jump starts, if you the bumper on our carts now has a device on it that the bumper sticks a little bit proud off of the frame rails, that if you make a certain level of contact and the bumper gets pushed in, you can't push it back out, and it tends to hang. And that results in a penalty. If you come into the scales afterwards, and your bumper's deployed, that's a penalty. If you're underweight, that's a penalty. If you make incidental contact, that can be a penalty depending on how the race director sees it. There's actually quite a few things that can result in penalties, and they're either time penalties, exclusion penalties, disqualification, up to serious penalties that result in like suspensions or permanent bans.
Colin, always good to catch up with you. We will talk to you next week. Lots more racing to discuss. Have a good one.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
There you go. That's Colin Livingston in the Racing Report, brought to you by Cantork. They put on a little bit of muscle. The next generation RT Series low-profile hydraulic actuators are now available. Stronger and more durable than ever. You can arrange a demo at cantork.com. Maybe Strider will get in there. Was never able to change his oil. Maybe you can change an actuator. Let's get to the Con Man with a Sports Center update, brought to you by Legacy Heating and Cooling, home of the no payments, no interest for 1 year in your AC unit. It's going to be 29 degrees for the next 5 days. Don't be a sweaty mess. Book it now at legacyheating.ca.